It's the little things, Josh. And honestly, the little things, it's a contextual awareness piece because what you consider little could actually be very big in somebody else's world.
Right. And I know the thing is, the slogan is, I never did mind the little things, or something like that. But it's like those are the things that are important, right?
It's the attention to detail. But I also think that there's a value awareness that needs to happen when you do little things about how that creates a bigger message overall, like a mosaic.
Right. So let's riff on this idea, talk about it a little bit, just see where it takes us.
Join us today as we talk about the impact of little things on Curiosity Continuum. Hey everybody, this is Brian.
And this is Josh.
Welcome to the podcast for Curiosity Continuum.
Curiosity Continuum is an ever-growing collection of content designed to ignite your creative talents and power up your critical thinking skills, master your world by learning the essentials needed to thrive in this century.
We share conversations that explore, examine, and reframe practical topics that help you learn something new and apply what you already know in a new way in a constantly changing world.
Be sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast app to receive notifications of new content. If you like what you hear and want to dive deeper, be sure to sign up for our newsletter by visiting us at curiositycontinuum.com. Thanks for tuning in, and let's start the conversation.
Okay, little things. Now, I actually have a colleague, and his name is Tony Bodoh, and he's all about customer experience.
Sure.
And one of the smartest guys I've met in my professional life. He's very thoughtful. And he's the one that actually introduced me years ago to the theory of constraints. So shout out to you, Tony. What he does with companies is he's going to really help them dial in like those micro moments with customers. And so some of it's data driven, of course, and then it's experiential as well. And the premise of the message that he reinforces and teaches people and helps companies do is that there's these micro moments of decision,
right,
that people decide about how they think about a company, for example. But the same principle is in our personal dynamics as well. It's the little things. It's not, I did one big thing. It's
right,
all those little ones. And so those are little inflection points where you're, if in a company standpoint, if you're trying to sell a product, you're overcoming the objections that people have to be able to do business with you. They want to earn your business. Now, in today's world where you can know, the customer can know more about what particular car model sells for, what the product reviews already say about your
right,
brand of clothing, or restaurants.
Yeah.
They already have this knowledge. So it's not like you're trying to educate the customer on who you are.
No, they can go to Yelp or they can go to Google or wherever, and they kind of can figure out who you are, kind of that way.
Yes.
The broad strokes, anyway.
And what they're more concerned with is how did you make them feel?
Sure.
And did you mind at those little things, those little bitty objections? We have them, Josh. Like Josh and I have been married for years now, not to one another, but to
I was like, really? We have? Okay. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
So we when you're dating somebody, it's not like Josh took his wife Mel on one date and just blew it out and like going, yes, that's it.
Right.
It's a consistency over time. Like, tell them about your first date, Josh. It wasn't like this big grandiose thing.
No, in fact, it was like my wife asked me out to her brother's grand march for prom. Like, she was like sitting in the crowd and like he was going to the grand march,
Mm-hmm.
And then I said something like, nah, I'm not interested in that. And then I was like later, oh, you fool. She was asking you out on a date. And so I like expertly with my smoothness weaved back in and got that date rolling again. But after that, it was different because it was this kind of like we had obviously did multiple things. Our real first, like, I would say our first, like, really, like, date kind of like movie and stuff we watched together. We watched Gladiator on VHS
It's really hardcore.
in her parents' basement, and we ate nachos. It was just fun,
And you remember that experience. It didn't have to be
No.
big, whatever. But it was a major point in your turning. And I remember, so at this point, I'm actually living away from Minnesota where this is happening.
Right.
But I knew them both because I met Mel before I moved down. And then kind of like, here's some stuff going on, and then come back up to visit, and they're together. You see those things, and I pieced it together a little bit myself through distance and time and understanding. I'm like, this is really cool. What happens, I think, sometimes is that in a relationship, and so this could be, like I said, provided toward a professional or a personal relationship.
And they're really all personal, aren't they? In a certain way. Even the business,
That's a fair
even
statement.
the business relationships have a personal level to them.
Well, anymore you have to,
Yeah.
because nameless, faceless corporations. Now you've achieved a certain size because you've been successful.
Sure.
But the piece of staying connected, that is there. And look, you see the problem even in like social settings. So like in the United States, especially, there's a lot of large churches in the nation.
Right.
And when you have a congregation of that size, at some point they always seem to be implementing like small groups because they want people to have that sense of community. They're trying to make the big feel small again. And why?
Right. Well, it's because that sense of community is important.
Mm-hmm.
The sense of belonging, the sense of togetherness. Mm-hmm. Humans are like that. Like, we're weird. Like, we want to be together with people, but yet we don't.
Yeah. And you connect on some of the most random things sometimes where like you may have nothing in common. And this is why people honestly, like, they try to talk about the weather, talk about sports,
Right.
They talk about some news item, because like it's a way to kind of go in and find that little thing.
Well, it's a shared experience too. So it's like everyone,
Yes.
everyone has a comment about the weather because we're all subject to it wherever you are,
Right. But you don't feel the connection like,
No.
man, I connected with that guy.
No, it's not about that though. It's about the next level of conversation after that.
Yes. I think when you have those micro moments and those little things, you go, because those things maybe are hiding in you, maybe you're not comfortable feeling like, I really like stickers and I have my sticker books from when I grew up. And that's a really cool, nerdy thing. And like,
Right.
But sometimes people aren't keen to share that. They think, well, maybe they won't think of me the
I'm
same.
weird.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'm weird.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, you connect on the little weird thing and it just opens up the world. I've seen it happen way more times than I have of like, I had this argument about who's the best sports team. I mean, you can pour emotional energy into it, but I've seen real human connection when it's those things that are not the big broad brushstroke. And for my wife, look, honestly, in our relationship, if I hit the big things, I'm just doing like the minimum requirement for the relationship.
Sure.
She wants that attention and the care to be able to say he notices the little things. He cares for this and that. And that's a good care for a relationship as well. It's managing those little moments again and again and again.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what it's about, right? I mean, that's how we make human connection. Is managing moments of smallness, and it's not always. Of course, I'm going to be there, on the big things, or I'm going to be attentive on something like your birthday or whatever. But what am I doing throughout the day or throughout the week or whatever that, like even like a friend that I have, for example, like if I know he's having a really tough time at work or a bad week or something, I might text him and just say, hey, how you doing? Maybe that was like his lifeline for that week. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes I think we've all been there where like we're having a really bad time and somebody just reaches out and says something, just like say hi. And you're like, man, this is like the most random person to ask me this, but this is really making me feel like I'm kind of loved at that point,
Yeah. And the message that comes through, I'm telling you what, you may be a little bit random,
right?
As far as like your what would be called random acts of kindness, kind of like it just happens. But some of the most effective people are so considerate, and they're very intentional about those details. One of the masters of this, honestly, God rest his soul, is Fred Rogers.
Yeah.
I haven't read one account of anybody who has met him in person and spent any amount of time with him where they did not feel like they were known
Right.
and important, and that he wrote stuff down and he remembered them. Like, that's why he made people feel special. Of course he did what he did, and he was masterful at it, but the attention to the little things about people,
Yeah.
that made his like reputation or like his star rise, is like, he really cares.
Yeah, it wasn't a show. People have a pretty good like BS detector for that kind of stuff, Like
Yes.
like when the corporation is like, "We care about you," and blah blah blah. It's like a monotone voice. And that's part of the reason that corporations, I think, today are asking that question. How does this product make you feel? How do you feel when you're talking about, Hondas? Or how do you feel when you're talking about McDonald's or, and I mean the little things, but they're also pulling back and kind of pull that around, those little things you think about, but they're also thinking about like nostalgia. Like they're trying to pull in your feelings of like when you were a kid and everything was happy-go-lucky. How do you feel, if it's an older brand and they tap into that? And so you got to be aware of that too, because sometimes it's manipulative in a way.
So let's talk about the dark side of little things right now.
Yeah.
It sounds like a great Netflix series, The Dark Side of Little Things. Sorry.
Yeah, and yeah, it's like season 2 of Stranger Things on the Down Under or something, upside down.
So let's just call it what it is. If you're using something like tech, there's not like this inherent thing where that's the product that you're buying and enjoying. You are the product that's using the tech platform.
Right.
Social media is masterful at this.
It's for people. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tech for people.
It's like Soylent Green. Soylent Green is people. Well, social media's product is people. It's again, if you don't get the Soylent Green reference, please go look it up online and you'll understand what Josh and I mean. We geek out a lot on old sci-fi.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about all the intimate details that you share about your life on social media, and look, they game it like you got to post at least 5 times. Otherwise you lose your like super influencer status or whatever it might be. They're milking you for information and they're milking you for content. It's like building your house.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah. You're building your house on rented land. You don't own your Facebook account. As much as you like to think it is, it's like you're a long-term renter on their platform. And you've shared pictures. You've tagged friendships.
You've had conversations that on messengers that are attached to these platforms that I'm telling you that it's true that like an AI bot could read in an instant and like give them highlights about you,
Mm-hmm. And you wonder, like, man, that product speaks right to me. Why? Because they mine the information that you voluntarily gave them. I mean, like, it's what it is.
Right. So it's important to be aware of what the little things can actually do too.
Yes.
Because
those things are maybe obscure, maybe not as known. It's a quick way to feel intimacy or closeness to somebody or something when it's not. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. But the awareness portion of it is like, how is this being used and what are my responses to it? It's a good double check, I think, on about everything.
Yeah, and I mean I think that's just more putting things in context, right?
Always.
Like, and have that human connection first.
Mm-hmm.
Then those little things matter more. But get that broad connection in place where you're actually talking to somebody and building that relationship, then those little things do matter.
Josh, let's put a comma in the conversation here. I think this is a good spot to let people think about this.
Yeah, let them chew on it for a while.
All right. Well, folks, until next time, this is Brian.
And this is Josh.
For Curiosity Continuum.